winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no
I don't think we're
plan.
going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1.
Yeah, but he's
swine
not
flu,
president
and
of the
it was a
United
total
States.
Disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now. But it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff.
He's comparing it to a virus that's not even.
It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing.
That happened a long time ago.
Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry. It's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump?
I love the way he's like,
soon. I say, well,
come on, y'all.
We have
come
no
on.
choice. We
But
can't lock ourselves
Joe
up in a
Biden
basement
Joe
like
Biden is what
Joe
we have.
does.
So.
He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room at the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had,
he had to meet them.
It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said,
like that was a possibility. I could have canceled. I could have not done anything.
I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals, and now I recovered. 99.9.
He's healed.
People recover.
By the way,
99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have.
Like everything is open right now. So
can get sick with
the concept of having it open.
Vice President Biden,
I don't know what he means by closed.
Strategy, though. You have
I respond to that.
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it.
Ooh,
you folks
Joe
home
Biden.
had an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband
learning to die with it.
Learning to live with it. Come on, we're dying with it.
Oh, he's trying to talk. He's trying to talk.
He said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now. What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility.
Oh, he's already trying to interrupt. He's like, excuse me. Excuse me.
And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that it came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part.
It's China's fault.
But they didn't keep it.
So we have no responsibility to fix it.
Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry. It's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that. A lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed.
Okay, so he's not
And
the
that went on for months. Nancy
president.
Pelosi said the same thing. She was
Even
dancing
if
on
he
the streets
said
in
it, he's
Chinatown
not
in
the
San
president.
Francisco. But when I closed, he said, "This is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic." I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
I didn't
certainly
say should have
did.
called
You
Thursday,
certainly
and I
did.
I talked about his xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to
He
handling
thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
That's obvious.
do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President?
No.
Biden?
No, he said no.
Let's talk about your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part.
Uh-oh.
Why businesses have
He
gone
said
under, why schools
ineptitude.
are closed,
So
why
Trump
many
knows
people
that's a
have
bad
lost their
word.
living, and why they're concerned.
What's he gonna
Those
do?
other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the neighbor, but there are, look.
Like he's supposed to
we
know the
need
future.
standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up, more social distancing, do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums, do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight and they're dying. They're dying.
I'm not sure
And
what
he
he's
supports
saying
all
is
these
shut
people.
down.
All he talks about
Because outside
is
it's a
shutdowns. No,
it's a
we're not
party,
gonna
it's a
shut
block
down,
party.
and we have to
It's a
open our
constant block
schools.
party.
And it's like,
I
as
mean,
an example, I have a young
theater,
son.
we're
He
all shut
also
down.
tested positive.
Working,
By
but
the time
as far
I
as
spoke
not
to
being
the
able to
doctor
go
the
out,
second time, he was fine. It just went away.
it's a party
Young
outside.
people. I guess
It's a
it's
pool
their
party.
immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive.
Oh my gosh. He
with a
has
massive
the
economy.
same, I
People
think
are
he only
losing their
knows
jobs.
maybe
They're
like
committing suicide.
20
There's
words.
depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that
Like
nobody's
you
ever
can't do
seen
that.
before.
How can
There's
that?
abuse,
I can't even
tremendous
say that to my
abuse.
kids. I can't
We
be
have
like,
to open
look,
our country.
you
I've
can't
said
do
it
that. And they're
often.
like,
The
why?
cure
And I'm like,
cannot be worse
you
than
can't,
the
you just
problem
can't do
itself.
that.
Vice
And that's
President.
what's happening.
This is the
And he
president.
wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your
Simply
response.
not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need
Amy,
to
you're
have
talking truth.
plexiglass
You're talking
dividers
so much
people
truth.
cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take
And Trump is
testing
not funny.
rapidly and know whether
But he's
a
treating
person
this whole
is,
thing
in fact,
like it's
infected.
open mic
You need to
night
be able to trace.
for
You need
4
to be able to
years.
provide all
4
the
years of open
resources
mic
that are
night.
needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent
He's
with
just trying to get more
saying
stage
that
time. We know that. We're
what-
comics.
we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, It's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is
Wait, what happened to
expensive,
plexiglass? Why is he
and
talking
it's
about
not the
plexiglass?
answer. I mean, you're
When
going
he
to sit
said,
there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic.
did somebody say
These are
plexiglass?
businesses
Did I
that are
miss something?
dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You
But you
just
could-
can't. Take a look at
My
New
hair's
York and
all up
what's
in my
happened to
face, so I
my
gotta fix this.
wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look
Vice
at what
President
New
Biden.
York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does.
Here we
Blue
go.
states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a
He can't.
spike
He doesn't even know
in
what to do.
coronavirus. They're
Is
the
he
red
going to
states.
turn red?
They're
Like,
the
what
states
is
in
the
the Midwest.
mixture
They're the
of
states in the
red
upper
and
Midwest. That's where
orange
the spike is
together? Like,
occurring
what color
significantly.
is that?
But they're
If he
all
turns
Americans.
red,
They're all
like how white guys
Americans.
turn
What
red,
we have to do is
and then
say,
he's turning
wear
red and
these
orange
masks,
at the
number
same
one.
time.
Make sure we get the help that
What
the
color
businesses
is
need
that?
that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
When you
about
say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes and they've been closed and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We
Okay,
have
so
to
his
protect
his
especially our seniors with heart
what he's saying
problems
is that
and
people are
diabetes problems,
dying,
and we will protect them. We
and
have
all
the
these
best
people have been
testing
dying on
in
my
the world by
watch.
far. That's
So
why
we
we have
should
so many cases.
Let me
open
follow
up.
up with you before we move on to our next
That
section,
makes-
President Trump. This week,
Yeah,
you called
okay,
Dr. Anthony
open up.
Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to
Let me,
fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony, but he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said, this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew.
No,
what
he's
this
not
thing was.
knocking
Nobody
him,
knew where it was
except
coming
for he's
from, what
knocking
it was.
him.
We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make
What?
mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response.
That's
quickly,
actually
and then we're
what
gonna
he
move on to the
said.
next
Is
section.
My
this
response is that think about what
is
the
this
president knew in
deflecting?
January and didn't tell the
Are we
American people.
seeing
He was told this
like
was a serious
active
virus that spread in the air,
narcissism right
and it
now?
was much worse than the flu. He went on record and
crazy.
said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want
Trevor
us to
says the
panic.
mixture of orange
He
and
didn't want
red
us-
is strawberry
Americans don't
blonde,
panic.
which is that's
He panicked.
delightful. I want to
But guess
see that.
what?
I mean, I think
In
that
the
would be
meantime, we
cute.
find out in the New York Times the other day
I think it would
that,
be
in
cute.
fact, his folks went
It
to
might
Wall
win a
Street
couple
and said this is
couple
a really
votes for
dangerous
Trump.
thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration,
That's
but
funny.
from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving.
Samantha
It's a dangerous
says
problem.
Well, this is
I'm going
one
to give you
this
30
is
He talks
one I
in
seconds
have-
to
circles, and he
respond, then
does.
The
we're
Wall
gonna
Street
move
one,
on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
I
Joe,
haven't.
you have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money.
And that he's a fucking
Every time
idiot.
you raise money,
Thank you,
he is
Samantha. He is a
amazing.
fucking
I could
idiot.
raise so much more money.
He's an
as
idiot. He just,
president
I mean,
and
there's
as somebody that
nothing.
knows most of those people.
We don't even,
I
there's
could
no
blow
middle
the heads
ground
of Wall
here.
Street, the
And
heads of
even if you're a
every
nice
company in
person and you
America.
try
I
not
would
to think
blow
that way.
away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street.
Nobody wants our
because
president
you're
to
the
be
one
an
that takes the
idiot.
money from Wall Street, not me.
My average-
I could blow away your records that like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able
All
to
right,
get.
gentlemen, we're
But
going
don't
to move
tell me
on.
about Wall
Average
Street.
We're gonna-
contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on
Mm.
to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it.
It is like America's a third world country.
I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know
how is it that we can be targeted like this? I totally agree with you, Samantha. I totally agree with you. How?
The Iranians. But the point is this.
Like how?
We are in a situation where we have foreign companies
and that we can't find out who's
in the outcome of our
who specifically is doing this.
His national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question. Why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part.
But it's the same question.
Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came
through
look at
Putin
Joe, because
this?
He was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife, and you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million. And,
I totally agree. Let that petty flag fly.
I never got any
Let
money
him
from
do it.
Russia.
Let him do it to himself.
Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that, and through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion going to $420 billion a year. That's
now or in the future.
I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were
Is he for real? Because there's there are like 7 books about his financial dealings with
to the American
Russia.
People.
And he's talking about
somebody just had a news conference a little
possible
while
emails
ago who was essentially supposed to work
there
with you
are
and your
7
family.
books, one from Bob Woodward that is
regardless
more
of me,
than credible. He's covered
talk to the American people. Maybe
like
you can do it right
several
now.
presidents.
Vice President
And he's
Biden,
talking
you may
about emails.
respond in 30 seconds. And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not
That's why I'm a
taken
Russian
a
bot.
penny
That's
from
why I
any
know.
foreign
I know I
source
am.
ever in my life.
I don't care what y'all say.
We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money.
It's a bank account in China
whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president. I have released all of my tax returns.
The email's
22
right.
years. Go look at them. 22
We're gonna-
years of my tax
The
return.
emails.
You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road.
And
to
why
a
do we
new
have a president
a
that doesn't
golf course
pay
you have
taxes?
overseas? So what's going
When
on
other
here?
people
Why don't
sit in
release your
prison
tax
for
return and
not
stop
paying
talking about
taxes.
corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can.
What does
I wanna
under
do
audit
it,
mean?
And
What
it'll
do you say,
show how
under audit?
successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax.
He's always
Tens
saying,
over the last
they said,
number of years.
sir,
Tens
this
of
is-
millions of dollars. I
someone
prepaid
said, sir,
because at some
you
point
must
they
be the
think
best.
it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell you
told
when
you
you could
that.
release
Excuse
them?
me. And it
Oh,
wasn't
excuse
written
me.
whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine.
This is like
you do. I don't make
this
money
is
from
like junior
Russia.
high. What is he?
You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the
You
big
should
man,
have
I think.
someone in
I don't know,
a
maybe
Trump
not,
Halloween
but you're the big
costume
man, I think.
do these debates
Your
for
son said
him.
we have
Like
to give
this is, there's no
10%
way
to
it
the
could
big
be
man.
worse.
Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to
Like,
ask
it would
you
make
both
more
some questions
sense
about
even.
all of this.
If
but
it was
I'm
all
gonna let you
plastic,
both
if the guy
respond
was
very
plastic.
quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have
soon
a
as the audit is
deadline for
finished.
when you're going to release them
I
to the
get
American
treated
people?
worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because
you
I have a
don't
lot
have
of
a timeline.
people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS.
Oh, I
very
get treated
unfairly.
very badly
But
by the
we had a deal
country
all done.
that
As
I
soon
want
as we're
to
completed with the deal, I
lead.
want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes.
Oh,
I
it's
paid
called
in advance.
I want to ask
That's
you
what
both
it's
about
called,
questions
preparing your
regarding
taxes.
your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance
Some
to
point
talk
about
about
explain
this
to
more
us.
broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years
Everybody
you're going to
knows
release
it.
your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not
Everyone's
paying
taxes
your
are
taxes,
done.
or you're
You
paying
can't
taxes
prepay
that are so
taxes,
low.
Samantha says.
When last time he said
Yeah,
when
how
he
you
paid,
prepay
he
your
said,
taxes?
I only
How do
pay
you-
that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system.
I don't even know.
Come on.
I just am always a deadline person.
So-
I'm always
President
like,
Trump, and then I
"You-"
want to get to two questions to both of you.
Sure.
and I'm
I
terrified.
was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign.
They did.
No president should
spied.
ever have to go through what I went through.
He's
Let me
he's
just
he's
say this.
oh wow,
Mueller
he's been treated
and
so
18
horribly.
angry Democrats and FBI agents
Look,
all
if
over
you
the
don't know who
place
I'm gonna
spent
vote for-
$48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. 48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent 1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong, because
All
the
right.
kind
Oh,
of
Eva
things
said
that
that.
you've
Sorry.
done and the kind
I
of
said Sam
monies
said that,
that
but
your family has
Eva
taken.
said
I mean, your
you
brother
can't
made money
prepay
in
your
Iraq,
taxes.
millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some
man.
questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal.
Oh,
regard to
he sounds
Ukraine.
like he smells like peppermint.
We had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, The guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money.
And like, is his son trying to be president?
China. I have not had it. The only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
But could I just one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. 183, and they gave him a $3 million.
She's like, no, I can't even let this
I'm going to let the vice president
That's
respond to that quickly,
100%
and then I need to get to a
dishonest.
question to you. Very
No
quickly,
basis for
Vice
that. Everybody investigated that.
I
one
know,
said
what
anything
they
he did was
say.
wrong in Ukraine.
Okay,
There's
President
never
Trump, this is for
any
you. Since you
specific-
took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran
He
for
closed it
president. let alone
before he
became
opened
president.
it.
Big difference. He is
Because
the vice president of the United States.
he also has
and his
magical
son,
powers
His brother and his other brother
that we don't
are
know
getting
the
rich.
likes
They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking
Okay,
up
none
every
President Trump,
place
we've
thank
ever
you.
seen
We do need
before.
to move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not
look
down.
at look at.
We are making sure that in order to do business in China,
I mean,
you have
that's
to give
easy to
all your
see.
intellectual property. You have to get
Trump,
have
why
a
are you
partner
shaking
in
your
China
head?
that's 51%. We would not do that at all. Number one. Number two, we're
I
in a
can't remember,
situation where
Trevor. What did you
China
say
would have to
about the
play by
color he's
rules
going to turn? I
internationally as well.
forgot. It was going to be a
When I met
delightful
with
color.
Xi
It was going to be delightful for
when I
everyone.
was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way.
Oh, strawberry
I will run
blonde.
it.
Thank
That's
you.
what we
It
did,
is strawberry
over
blonde.
steel tariffs and a range
I
of other
can't
things
wait
when
for
we
that
were president and vice
color. I
president.
think that it's
All
going to
right, let's
add
talk
to the
about North
debate.
Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have
It's
to
just going to
respond
make
that.
it. It's
Okay.
just that's
Very
the
quickly, and then
October
we're gonna move on
surprise.
to
With
North
$1.5 billion
Korea.
from
The
China,
strawberry
after
blonde color.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a
Gonna
year.
turn the color
for
of
introductions.
Trevor's
President Trump, on China policy, though,
hair color of
specifically are you
Trevor's
going to
birth.
do? What specifically are you
And
going
that's
to
not
do
on
to make
accident.
China pay? You've said you're going
First
to.
of
There's
all,
a reason
China
for
is
that,
paying.
Trevor.
They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave
New
$28 billion.
sanctions? New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers'
China,
money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't come
No,
from
you
China.
know who the taxpayer is. It's called China. China paid
true.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe?
So
They devalued
our
their
president
currency, and
doesn't
they also paid
understand
up. And you know who got the money? Our
tariffs.
farmers, our great farmers, because they were
That's
targeted.
not scary.
You never charged them
Terrifying.
anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
I just want him
And
to
now we have
say,
a steel
Trevor, that
industry.
he's a
Vice
big
President
deal.
Biden, your response.
He's a big deal.
This
I
isn't
want him to
about-
say he's kind of a big
reason why
deal.
he's
But that would be
bringing up
too
all
humble
this
of him.
malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family.
Like more
And
of a
your
big
family's
deal in
hurting
China than
badly.
Kobe.
If you're making less than, if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires for the ball because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making. And the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont, they're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
statement.
North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do
for
want
one
to turn
second.
to
He
10
can't
seconds, Mr.
stand
President.
not
Typical
being able
political
to
statement. Let's
interrupt.
get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's
you're
why I
not a
got elected.
politician.
Now,
We need a
let's get off the
politician
subject of China. Let's talk around
to
sitting
be
around the table.
our
Come on,
president.
Joe, you can do better.
We're going to
Or
talk about North Korea
just
now.
a-
President Trump, you've met with North
just
Korean
a
leader
sane
Kim Jong-un
human.
3 times. You've
That
talked
would
about
be
your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the
just
fact that there
a
hasn't been
plus.
a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you
No.
forged? Just 30 seconds
No.
here because we need to
No.
go on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour.
I
He
wonder
said, "The
what
biggest
kind of
problem we have
milkshakes
with
they had.
is North Korea."
Do they have milkshakes?
He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war. And he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very
So I
good
think that
relationship, and there's
She
no
doesn't want to
war.
shut him down
And, you
so
know,
much
about 2
so that
months
they
ago,
can't come
he
back
broke
and say that
into
he
a
wasn't
certain area. They
able
said, "Oh, there's going
to
be trouble." I
say,
said,
you know what I
"Maybe
mean?
not,
Like that
because
he
he's
wasn't
not
able
gonna
to
do
say
that."
what he
And I was
wanted
right. Look,
to say.
instead
That
of being in a
I
war
think
where
they're trying
millions
to
of
take
people, Seoul,
away
you know, is
as
25
much as
miles away.
possible from the
Millions
concept
and
of him
millions,
not being able
32
to
million people in
talk.
Seoul. Millions of people would be
Okay.
dead right
I
now.
don't know.
President
We
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
That's
and I
just
have a
seconds.
good
Thank you.
relationship.
Vice
Just-
President Biden, to you, North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat right
Because
now?
I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, "Why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea?" I said, "Because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue." What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off, and they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American
Kristen,
families.
they tried
Very
to
quickly,
meet with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't
Okay,
like
that
him.
doesn't-
He wouldn't do it.
Okay,
This-
I gotta
this
give
isn't
Vice
true.
Respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's
I-
okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship.
He's just
You know,
saying
people don't
things.
understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump, we
with
have to
leaders
move
of other
on because we
countries
have
is
a lot
a
of
good thing.
we have a lot of questions to get
Yes.
to.
I mean,
That's
this
what
he
I'm
may
saying.
as well
We
be
had a
saying
good
that,
relationship with
you
Hitler
know,
before he in fact invaded
Obama
Europe, the rest of Europe.
smells
Come on.
like
The reason he would not
turkey.
meet with
I mean,
President
he's
Obama
just
is
making
because
stuff
President
up.
Obama said, "We're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you." That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And it
let's
didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk about
He left
American
me a
families.
mess, Kristen.
President Trump. Okay,
Oh,
we do
he's
need
doing
left
that.
me
He's
a
doing that.
mess.
I'm saying your
North
first
Korea
name.
was a mess.
We
And in
need to
fact,
move
if I
on so that
remember
we
the
can get
first
to all
2 or
of our
3
other
months,
questions tonight,
there was a
President
very
Trump.
dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a very, they left us
It was so
a
dangerous.
mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest
Right.
problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to
I don't think he wants to go there.
healthcare, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett,
Ugh.
and healthcare is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and
This
your
is the cause
administration,
of
Mr. President, is
depression
advocating for the court to overturn
for several
it.
people.
If the
Amy
Supreme Court
Coney
does
Barrett.
overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes.
No, I'll do absolutely
First of all,
nothing.
I've
I'll
already
take
done
it away,
something that nobody thought
and then
was possible.
I'll go golfing.
Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare.
I'm just
as
going
we
to take
call
it all
The
down
individual mandate where you have to pay
because
a
it's too
fortune for the
expensive,
privilege of not having to
so
pay
that no
for
one
bad
has
health
anything.
insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision, run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy.
He's
They
not
ran
on
it.
anyone's side.
Premiums
He's
are
like,
down, everything's
I'm
down.
the
Here's
only one who
problem.
does
No matter how
anything.
well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it
Okay.
no longer is Obamacare because without the individual mandate, it's much different.
That makes total
Pre-existing
sense.
conditions will always stay.
That
What I would
plan
like to
is
do
so
is
solid.
a much better healthcare, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come
Yeah.
up with a brand new, beautiful healthcare.
Beautiful
The Democrats will
healthcare.
do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time. And I think we're going to win the House. Okay, you'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But
They're not
come
going
up
to win the
with a
House.
better healthcare, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important: we have 180 million people out there that have great private healthcare, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people,
He's not. This
been
is
successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180
Did he say
million
something about
plans.
Slender
We
Man?
have done an incredible
What is he
job
talking
with
about?
healthcare, and we're going to do even better.
Oh,
Okay,
Let me
Vice
respond.
President
Gotta
Biden, yes,
mute.
this is for you.
We
Your
gotta
healthcare plan
mute.
calls for
Samantha, I know
building
you
on
love that.
Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
didn't that?
What I'm gonna
Didn't
do
his
is
plan
pass
make
Obamacare
sense?
with a public option.
He's going to take out
Become Biden's.
Obamacare,
Public option
and then
is an
some
option that
squirrels
says
and
that
peas
if you,
and
in fact,
jelly
do not
beans.
have the wherewithal to be, if
I'm
you
excited.
qualify for Medicaid,
That makes sense.
and
Great
you do
policy.
not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I did not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions.
Right.
None, zero.
It's already
You can't do it in
happening
the
right
ether.
now. Why take
He's
it
been
away and then
talking
put it
about
back?
this for a long time.
What?
There is no, he's
Because
never
it's
come up
called
with a plan. I
Obama?
guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions.
We're in
What
the
are they
middle
gonna
of
do?
a
I have a follow-up
pandemic.
for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of
There's
funding
some smart
socialized
people.
medicine. What do you say
There
to people
have to
who have
be.
concerns that your health
Why
care
would you
plan, which
even
includes a
talk about
government
health,
insurance
messing
option,
with
takes the
healthcare in the
country
middle of a
one step
pandemic?
closer to a healthcare system run entirely by the government? What's
I
your
say
response
it's
to that?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think healthcare is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable healthcare.
Everyone should have
And I am
health
very
care.
proud of my plan.
Period.
It's gotten endorsed by all the
Every
major
person,
labor unions, as well as
man, woman,
a whole
child,
range of other people who,
and
in fact,
whatever
are
you
concerned in
identify
the
as,
medical field.
you should have
This
health
is
care.
something
You
that's
should
gonna
be able
save
to.
people's
You
lives.
should be able to
And
go
this
to
is
the
gonna give
doctor.
some people an opportunity to have health care for
You
their
should
children.
be able to go
How
to
many
the
of you home
emergency
are
room.
worried
You
and
should be
rolling
able
around in
to
bed
live.
tonight
Isn't that a
wondering
right to
what in
life?
God's name you're going to do if you
Life,
get
liberty,
sick?
and pursuit of
Because
happiness.
you've lost
Life,
your
life.
home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President
Excuse
Trump,
me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years.
He
and
was
it's not
president
like it was
for
25
47
years ago.
years.
It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything.
You guys, he was
didn't do it.
president,
He
or
wants socialized
y'all.
medicine. And
There
it's not that he
all
wants it.
kinds of
He's
people
vice
here.
president. I mean,
He's
she
president
is
for 47
more
years.
liberal
He's
than
been
Bernie
president for
Sanders and wants
47
it
years, and
even
y'all
more.
didn't even
Bernie
know.
Sanders
Y'all
wants
didn't
it.
even
The
know.
Democrats want it.
So
You're
it is
going to have
completely our
socialized medicine.
fault.
Just like he went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking.
What are we talking about,
And you
Pennsylvania?
never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way,
But somebody should ask the question.
you can
He,
ask.
he goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have a,
fracking.
we have,
There
we
will
have
be
a
no
number of,
Where's he
we
been
have a
for
number of
47
topics
years?
we're
No,
gonna
but
get
that's a
to.
big-
We-
that's a
and
big
and
question.
We're going to get to, we're going to get to.
It's
a
the
number
same
of
thing with
topics.
socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice
to
President,
health.
your response, please.
My response is people deserve. to
I'm
have
on my
affordable
on
healthcare,
my
period.
Facebook page. I don't see the
Period,
comments from
period,
every
period.
other page
And the
I'm
Biden care
broadcasting to.
proposal
So
will,
just
in
letting you
fact,
know.
provide
I
for
can
that
see it
affordable
from
healthcare, lower
some other
premiums.
ones.
What we're going to do is
I-
going to cost some money.
Maybe
It's gonna cost
YouTube,
over
but I only see it from
$750
my
billion
Facebook
over
page if you
10
want me to
years
read
do
it.
And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing.
He's not
for
done
anybody on healthcare.
anything.
Not a thing.
Kristen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized
Turn
medicine.
his mic off.
And when he and healthcare, when he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally
Wrong.
destroyed, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in
Bernie.
his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a
Yeah.
very liberal governor. They wanted to make
Yeah.
it work.
Okay,
It-
let's hear.
it was-
Let's let
If you're
Vice President Biden
undecided,
respond.
It
if you're
doesn't
voting
work.
for
President
someone
Biden
else,
respond.
think about
Thinks he's
this.
running against somebody else.
All
He's running
you
against
that voted for
Joe
these
Biden.
nuts,
I beat all those
That's
other people
why we
because
are
I disagreed
where we
with
are.
them. Joe Biden. he's
choose.
running
We have two
against. And
choices.
the idea that we're
Trump,
in a situation that
Biden.
they're going to destroy Medicare.
That's what we have
this
right now.
is the guy.
Vote
the
for one
actuary
of them.
Medicare said, if in fact,
If you
at
think
Social
this is the
Security,
cool place
if
to
in fact he
be,
continues to withhold his plan to
vote
withhold
Trump.
the
But
tax on Social Security,
vote.
Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So no, I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare, come on.
He tried
Come on,
to get
man.
rid
10
of, he
seconds, Mr.
tried to hurt
President, and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago, Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All
One
right,
thing,
let's move
but
on.
this
I'm
is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that
Let me,
when they
Mr.
announced
President,
27
I have to
years
move
ago,
on
he's
to the
just
next
making stuff
They
question,
up.
said
or
the
else
stock
we're
He's
not
market
making
gonna
it
have
up.
time to
boom
talk about it.
if I'm elected. If
300
he's
years
elected,
ago.
the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's
biggest
move on to the
analysts are
next
saying-
question
Let me respond.
very quickly.
He's just
The idea that the
grasping.
stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market.
Yeah.
Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars. Because
I wasn't
that's
listening
his
to
only measure.
Biden right then, but
What
he seems
happens
really
to the
angry.
ordinary people
So-
out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to
Kristen,
move on, gentlemen.
401ks are through the roof.
We're gonna
People's
move on.
Stock are through the roof.
All
And
right.
he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short
We're
period of
gonna-
time before
okay,
he even knew
we're
it.
going to move on to
And
the
he
next
left.
question.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
he
that's one of the
said-
reasons I think we're going to take over
But
the
you're
House
the
because of
president.
her. Nancy
I
Pelosi
do.
doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right,
By the
Mr.
way,
Vice
just so
President,
you know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because let me
Republicans
ask
will
Vice President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets. So then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter
The bill
with
that
these
was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID.
I don't know what happened to my
But
camera.
it was really a big
it was messed
bailout
up, so I had
for
to switch
badly
cameras.
run Democrat cities and states.
All
By
right,
the
I
way,
want
if
to.
I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk
He's
about
even
the
making
minimum
a
wage,
sad
gentlemen.
face.
Mr. Vice President,
Like a
we
sad
are
face that
talking
you
a
would
lot about
draw
struggling small businesses
on a piece of paper when you're a
business
kid and
owners
you
these
have that
days.
like
Do you
sad.
think this is the right time
'Cause he
to ask
knows.
them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum
I
wage.
do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. It's not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly,
want
he
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option.
What?
Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
we have
recently.
to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is
Moderator finally is like,
small
what?
Businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very
Not true,
recently you would
by the way.
consider raising the federal minimum
it.
wage to $15
Say
an
it.
hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to
What I
$15 an
really
hour. Is that
like,
still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really like,
administration?
in a
Uh-oh,
second
he
administration,
got
but
caught.
not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President Trump,
ruinous.
thank you. Quick response, Vice President Bodden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about
Oh,
immigration.
Joe
We're going to talk about
Biden.
immigration now, gentlemen. And we're going to talk about families within this
Are we
context. Mr.
finally
President, your
tired of the
administration
lies?
Separated children from their parents at
Man.
the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families
let's talk
ever be
about this.
reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here and they used
Oh
to
my
use them to get
gosh.
into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally. And
This-
they come
this
in through
is
But
the
how
border.
will
why-
you
But let
reunite
me
these
just tell
kids
you,
with their
Let
families,
me just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture in a certain newspaper. And it was a picture of these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they were built
President Trump.
in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids?
He
Yes,
has
we're working on
no
it very- we're
idea that
trying
these
very
kids are
hard.
real
But a lot of these
kids,
kids
that
come out
these
without
kids
the
are real
parents. They come over
people.
through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
We
Vice
have
President
kids
Biden,
that
let me bring you
haven't
into
been
this
with their
conversation.
parents for
Quick
2
response and then another
years,
question,
and they
too.
are in
500
country
plus
in a
kids
country
came
where
with
they might not even
parents.
understand the people
They
that are taking
separated
care
them at
of
the
them.
border to make it a
How is this
disincentive
not
to
something?
come to
How can
begin
you
with.
dodge that question?
Real tough. We're really strong. And guess
Where
what?
you
They
might not even
it's not
speak the
coyotes didn't
same
bring them over.
language. You
Their
might not be able
parents
to understand
were
the
with
same
them.
language.
They got
They've
separated
been
from their
taken
parents.
away from their
And
parents.
it makes us
Their
a
parents
laughing
can't
stock
find
and
them.
violates every
They
notion
can't
of who
find
we
their
are as a
parents.
nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
They
to
did
that?
it. We
We
changed.
did not
They built the
separate the
cages.
they-
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about
Who
what we're
built
talking
the
about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about.
Y'all,
What
I can't.
happened?
I can't.
Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over
He has no answer.
500
If
sets of
nothing
those
else,
parents,
this is the
and
only
those
part of
kids
the
are
debate that you need to
alone.
pay attention to.
Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say this.
immigration.
They
10
went down.
seconds,
We
and
brought
then I need to ask you a
reporters,
question.
everything. They are so well taken care
No,
of. They're in
no.
facilities that were so clean.
But some of
No.
them
We've gotten
haven't been
such good-
reunited
But
with their
just ask
families.
I
one
don't-
question. Who built
Even
the
if that's the
cages?
truth,
I'd
they
love
can't
you to
find
ask
their
them that.
mom. They
Who
can't
built
find
the
their dad. They
cages?
Let me
can't
ask
find
about your
their
immigration
family.
policy, Mr. Vice President.
But it's not
the
the
Obama
truth.
administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided
That's-
over record deportations
that's-
as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they're going to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River and it's illegal.
Yep.
And they say, "Oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you." They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them.
They're
We
going
owe
to be
them.
immediately certified.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've
We
changed
did.
without
What
having
is he
a
talking
specific.
about?
We got
8
rid of
years
catch
to
and
release the
release. We
kids
got
that
rid of
you
a lot of horrible
separated
things
from
that they put
the
in
parents in
and
the
that they lived with.
future?
But he had 8 years he was vice president.
He's not even
He
answering the
did
question.
nothing except build cages to keep children
That's
in.
what he did?
Vice President
Wrong.
Biden, your response.
Oh my
The catch and
gosh.
release. You know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
so
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It
on.
just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe.
Yeah.
They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
But they're
President
very,
Trump, let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the
You
next
don't know
section.
the law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law. What he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it
Yeah.
out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to
the
worry
Trump
about it.
pardoned
They terminated it, so we don't have to worry about
Let's
it.
the
move on
Arizona
to the
sheriff
next
that was
section.
524
responsible
kids
for
not
the
knowing
poor
where in God's
treatment
name they're
of
gonna be.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about
of
our next section,
the
which
people
is
that were
race
that
in
were
America.
under
And I
his
want to talk about the way
control at
Black
that one
and brown
time, and he
Americans
pardoned him.
experience race in this
Pardoned
country.
because he was
Part of that
convicted
experience is
of,
something
of
called
the way
the
that he was
talk.
treating
It
these
happens
people.
regardless of class and income.
Why is
Parents
this
who
okay?
feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street.
Yep.
Don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street.
Yep.
Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, just yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling.
He can't even
better
stand it.
access
He
to
doesn't even know what he's
opportunity
talking about.
to
He doesn't
borrow
know.
money to
Trump
start
doesn't know
businesses. All
what
the things we
Biden is
can
even
do, and
talking
I've laid
about.
out a clear
Love
plan
him or hate
as
him,
to
he
how
knows
to do
more.
those things. Just to give
Biden
people
knows
a shot.
more
It's
than
about
our current
accumulating the
president. This
ability
is
to
a
have wealth
reason
as well as it is
for you
to
to
be
vote
free
for
from
Biden.
violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the Black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that. He said it, super predators. And they kept never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the Black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception
this
of
is just,
Abraham Lincoln,
it's just
possible
nonsense.
exception, but the
I don't know
exception
why.
of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done.
I mean, it's not
what
even
I've done.
funny anymore. There's
Criminal
no way to make it
justice
funny
reform.
anymore.
Obama and Joe didn't do it.
He talks
I
about
don't even
Black
think
people
they
as
tried
if
because they had no
we're
chance
not
of doing
people.
it. They
Even
might have
like we don't
wanted to
even
do it,
know.
but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture. And everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the Black and Hispanic communities, and then historically Black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding. And I did 10-year long-term funding. And I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them and they like me and I like them. But
What is he talking about? Is the question. What do you understand why African American parents are fearful for their children?
Response to that.
What is he talking
response
about?
to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not
This is
enough
making my
people in
head
jail.
hurt. I'm gonna
And go on my
order
website,
something.
get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young
Order some
gangs, and
food.
the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who, in the Central Park five innocent Black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them.
He pushed for that. None of them were guilty.
Of the crimes they were suggesting.
Absolutely.
Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama.
Wow.
And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you do it? You were vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do and you're going to do this.
Why didn't you do anything 4 years ago? This is not the right argument for you, Trump.
Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am. You know who he is. You know his character. You know my character. You know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. Character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia.
Gentlemen, I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President, you've described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that Black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police, pigs, talking about our police, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were
so that's the only,
and that was my first
even if that makes sense,
glimpse of
that's
Black
the
Lives Matter.
only
I thought it was a terrible thing.
basis
As far as my
for
relationships
understanding
with all people, I think have great relationships
Black Lives Matter.
with all people. I am
Something
the least racist
he heard from maybe one person.
What do you say to Americans
even if that
who are
makes
concerned
sense?
by that rhetoric?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know
videos?
what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of Black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark.
Racist
but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least
ever
racist person in this room.
to be born.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham
His
Lincoln
children
is
are
one of the
more
most
racist, someone
presidents we've
said?
had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around.
That was one of his first things
across the board. He says about the poor boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on.
Stand by. He said stand by. He didn't say stand ready, but.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
He made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
you said you're Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did that? No. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the Black community.
And I'm saying,
I didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln.
He thinks he's winning.
Anybody done what I've done for the Black community? Now you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put tens of thousands of Black men mostly in jail.
All right, let me ask
Vice
President
because
Biden
if you look at what's happening with the voting right now,
let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them very, very badly. Just take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young Black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change the sense, and particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail.
It's a mistake that never should have been made, though. I mean, honestly.
They should be going into treatment. across the
I
board.
mean, this is a mistake with
That's
people's
what we should be
lives.
spending money. That's why
Still
I set
need
up
to
drug
vote for
courts, which were
Biden,
never
but-
funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drug, but they were not in the crime bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with
We were just
Obama
talking about
as your
healthcare.
president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it
I
done.
can understand
because
why people
you're all talking, no
don't want to
action.
see
We
this.
got
It
a lot of
doesn't
it
make
done.
sense.
We released
It's,
38,000. We got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from
You got
out-
nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from
I've
federal prison.
argued
We have
with
there were
this
over
guy
1,000 people who were
in
giving
a
clemency.
marriage
We
before.
make-
So I'm
in
just
fact,
saying,
we're the ones
there's
that
no
put in the
winning.
legislation
They will
saying
always think that
we
they're
could
right.
Look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running, to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
going to
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. You put tens
Because-
of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress.
Hmm.
That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it.
You
Joe.
gotta
Sometimes
talk-
All right.
You got to talk them into
gotta
it.
talk
We're gonna
them
move on to
into
our
it.
next section,
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You
we're,
did
we're-
what we
we're running out of
already done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please.
What time
You
is it?
both
Haven't
have
we been doing
very
this for like
different
3 days
visions
already?
on climate change. President Trump, you say that
time is it
environmental
really?
regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector.
It's 8
Vice
o'clock.
President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama
Is
use
he
it.
serious?
And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally.
This
We have the cleanest air,
This
the
is-
cleanest
this is what
water, and the
gaslighting
best
feels like.
carbon
It's exactly
emission
this.
standards that
the
we've
question
seen
is,
in
how
many,
would you
many
combat
years.
climate change and
Vice
support
President
We
job
Biden.
haven't
growth?
destroyed our industries.
Vice
Did
President
he
Biden,
even
2
say?
minutes to you uninterrupted.
Climate change and climate warming, global warming, is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world, we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit emissions, will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. because what it does, it will create millions of new good paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And what right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
They came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an
That's a lie.
economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through.
There's no way to even make this funny.
Their real plan costs $100 trillion.
It's not possible.
If we had the best year in the
because it's so sad and scary.
For 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because I want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen.
Trying to take away windows?
This wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. Right. They want to spend
just before or after
$100 trillion. That's
Democrats want to eat
He's
babies.
trying to say it was 6.
Do you eat the baby and then take away the window, or do you take away windows and then eat babies? And in houses that already have windows.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President respond.
It is hard to take them away.
We have a lot more questions to get to.
Country.
So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more questions.
I don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Queens.
$100 trillion.
Queens.
Give me a break. This plan endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group, because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America.
I need to get food. I'm sorry.
Is the solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50 bucks an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump,
wind causes cancer.
We are energy independent for the first time. We
and it's not even a
joke. These countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds. It's very intermittent.
What?
Got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany
Wind
and China.
is killing all the
fumes
birds.
Coming up,
Come on,
if you're a believer
y'all.
in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the world. So it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. And what about fracking?
All right, let me allow Vice President Biden to respond.
I never said I oppose fracking.
Why is he even going down that?
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions.
Okay, he's not doing the greatest.
Fracking. capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money and doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then we have.
He was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking and or oil on federal land.
Let me ask this final question.
Only in this section?
And then I want to move on to our final section.
Oh, please.
President Trump, people
Please,
of
final
color
section.
are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they are making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater the percentage gain than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely.
What is he saying he's putting
9
nicely?
times more. Now,
I'm confused.
Somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it. And I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic.
Okay.
We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All right.
And everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice
that.
President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute. Chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them. It matters how you keep them safe. What do you do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final
Would
question.
he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the
falls-
oil
By
industry?
the way, I have a transition from the oil industry, yes.
I really, I'd
that's a big
love a
statement.
fly.
It is a big statement
That's a big
because
statement.
I would stop
Why would you do that?
because the oil industry pollutes
Couple flies.
significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal, but you
That's a
can't
big
do that.
statement.
Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do
All
give
right.
it to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay,
Because
we have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy
He can't stand
the oil
it.
industry.
He
Will
can't
you remember
stand
that, Texas?
it.
Will you
Okay.
remember that Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me
That's
give
enough.
you 10 seconds to respond, and then I
Ohio.
have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
It takes everything out of context, but the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he gonna
final
get
question
China
for
to
both
do
of you.
it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No,
have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our
rejoin
final
Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
$1 trillion.
about leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make a country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, et cetera. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best Black unemployment
Who are the
numbers
people who
in
are
the
calling
history of our
him? I'm
country.
sorry. This doesn't make any
Hispanic,
sense. Yo, none
women,
of this makes sense.
Asian,
And it's not
people
funny
with
because
diplomas,
it's our
with
real
no
lives.
diplomas,
So
MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the
Is
road
the
to
other
success,
side black
but
people?
I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
What will
All
you
right.
say to
Vice
Americans
President
that
Biden,
didn't
same
vote for
question
you?
to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust
that's
hour and a half, a fantastic
big difference.
debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most
You can tell that
importantly,
Donald
thank
Trump
you to
wants
those
to
watching
rip
tonight.
his neck
Election Day
out
is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote.
with those teeny,
Thank
teeny,
you,
tiny
everyone,
hands.
and have
Just
a great
teeny,
night.
teeny. It's going to take forever. Rip his neck out. Teeny, teeny. Okay, let's see. Is anybody wearing mask? Okay, mask. Oh, wow, she's wearing a mask. Wow. Mask. They're doing masks. She's like, y'all. He's so mad. Trump is so mad. He's like, let's go. Oh, he seems so mad. He's mad. It's not the way he wanted it to go. Okay, look, I have to get something to eat. I can't do this. Wow. It seems like Biden just waved at Trump and then Trump didn't even look at him. So that, I don't know. This has really been an interesting one. You could really see that Trump did not like how things went. You could see that, I don't know. It seems like Biden came out of this a lot stronger than he had before. And Trump had been
and get your reaction to this final debate.
suppressed. He wasn't able to do what he wanted to, but it was based on what people have said and based on his previous debate. So, I mean, I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to come back. And I'll talk to you about what else might be going on. All right. See you soon.